hit the lecture circuit here. How you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, it's funny. It's funny you say that because seeing this thumbnail, which I'm really fond of, reminds me of my old career.
Yeah,
Before I was doing this crazy stuff, that's kind of what I used to do, but I didn't have a white jacket. So I used to be in a suit and tie, and I used to be on stage all the time, giving presentations to Merrill Lynch and, all these big companies all the time in auditoriums. They'd have, hundreds of people there. So that's kind of what I used to do, but there were no chickens involved. So
right.
it's a little
Oh,
bit,
I
it's a
forgot to put a
little bit,
chicken on stage. I
that,
don't know if you
that would have been
realize
funny.
this. I meant
Yeah, that
to.
would
I,
have been
I
funny.
keep forgetting.
That would have
But you
been
know what?
funny.
I did this one at 4K so we could zoom in on you. People don't realize how, you appear tiny there. I can't believe I forgot a chicken. That's such
Oh,
a
that's
missed
okay. I know it. I
opportunity
love it.
there.
I love it. Well, it's interesting. I think we've got a really interesting show for the audience tonight because, I make fun of doctors, right? Because, they're kind of sociopathic in a way. And, present company exclude. I'm not talking
The
about your
ones on
dad.
Twitter.
I'm talking about, yeah, I'm not talking about your dad. He's a sweetheart. But I'm talking about the rest of the lunatics out there that, boy, you put them in a white lab coat and they think they know everything. And the problem is they got the stethoscope in their ears just too much of the day. And there's so much stuff going on out there. So what we're going to look at are some findings that, quite frankly, I just don't think doctors are aware of. And the good news for YouTube is A, we're not going to talk about guns in any way. We're not going to talk about show guns, no guns. So this is a no gun show. In fact, I was going to put puppies and kittens and unicorns and marshmallows on the first slide. There's not going to
I
be any
love
guns in this show.
marshmallows.
Love marshmallows. And so we're not talking about COVID in
No,
any way,
but I
really,
think
in
you
this
just
show.
mentioned it. That's going to put a label on the video.
Oh,
Like,
okay. Well, I'm mentioning it to tell you we're not doing it, right? So we're
yeah, it
not
doesn't
talking
matter.
about
AI
COVID.
is going
Yeah,
crazy.
exactly. We just got flagged, right?
Yeah.
So we're not talking about that. We're talking, and again, it's one of these strange things. It's like if you said to me 2 years ago, 3 years ago,
Yeah.
just wait until we get into some of these other viruses, and I would have been, what? Who the hell? It's like I'm not interested in this in any way. But
What other
now,
viruses?
well, right, what other viruses? So now I'm like fascinated by this stuff. And the truth is, I still have to tip my hat to President Trump because it was kind of his thing that got my interest peaked in all this. So for those of you,
1917.
so for those of you who are burnt out on COVID, I hear you. I'm with you. I'm done with it, right? I was pretty much the first to say Wuhan schmoohan and say I'm not interested in Wuhan. I want to talk about this other thing. And it turns out that this other thing that I want to talk about is really a problem in the world of chickens or the world of eggs, based on whether we're talking about breakfast time or dinner time, right? So if we're talking about dinner time, it's really a chicken problem. And if we're talking about breakfast time, it's really an egg problem. But they seem to come from the same place, right? Chickens and eggs all come from the audience together,
I
the
mean, isn't this the
cloaca.
classic problem,
The
chicken or egg?
cloaca. Well, it's
What?
the cloaca. We know that the chicken and the egg it's all about the cloaca, and that's the hole from which the egg comes from the chicken, right? We've talked about this on the show. Where does the egg come from? Does it come from the
Oh.
chicken's vagina? Does it come from its anus?
Oh,
And the
yeah, I
answer is
remember
it
this
comes
was a
from the
particularly
cloaca.
unappetizing place for it to come
Yeah,
from.
well, it turns out that they don't have a vagina or an anus. They have a cloaca. It's a different thing.
Right.
And that's where the egg comes from. So I'll probably get another strike for talking
Yeah,
about
just for
the
talking about
chicken
that.
anus. Yeah, for
Yeah.
chicken anus. All right, but the net of this is a whole different thing, a whole different virus, whole different pandemic, completely unrelated to COVID, completely different. Started like 10 years ago, 2013, so 11 years ago, and it's unrelated. So this is kind of this thing that has got me fascinated because sort of just COVID showed up at the ninth inning. It was like Mariano Rivera to just show up. It's like, oh wow, well, it got everybody's attention. But what about the first 8 innings? I want to hear about that stuff, man. That now got my attention. Now I want to hear about the rest of the game. So let's take a look at some of the content I put together in the slides. In about, 25 minutes, 22 minutes, we're going to go to a patron-only portion where we're going to be watching video clips that are going to blow your mind, Jason. They're going to blow the audience's mind. You guys aren't going to believe how much evidence there is supporting about this other pandemic.
Well, I remember
it's like
in 2013 and 14, they were talking about avian flu, and then they just sort of stopped talking about it.
You see, what's interesting is that's when I moved away. I moved to Thailand in 2013. So I was, I'm shipping things and pallets, and where's my stuff? Is it in Bangkok? I'm not paying attention to the virus. I'm moving from America.
I mean, I
to
just
Thailand.
remember like seeing it on the internet as news, like Obama and avian flu, and it's like, ooh, and I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to get that.
I was in my own little world. I was oblivious.
All I thought about it.
I was completely oblivious to it. So you were aware. I'm telling you, I was in my own little world at the time. I was completely oblivious to what was going on. I was moving, to another country. So 11 years ago, this thing starts happening. So Mariano Rivera, the greatest ninth inning closer, I think, in the history of baseball. This guy is just, the Sandman. All right, so let's take a look at what we have here on the slide. So first of all, the first couple slides are just kind of public service announcements. You guys know that I go to the WHO rather regularly. The first slide that you just had up a second ago was showing England. And what you're seeing is an outbreak of influenza in England. Okay, so again, like I said, this has nothing to do with COVID, unrelated to COVID. This is flu. This is influenza. So that first slide is showing an outbreak right now. That's current in England. And so you didn't see anything like that 2 months ago, 3 months ago, right? Nothing's there out to the left. And now you've got an outbreak. How many physicians in England are aware that this is happening? Not many. You see, so this is why they're all wrong. They're wrong because they just don't know what's happening. Right? You don't have to be wrong actively. They're not saying.
Why is that? I mean, why are they? What the hell are they doing that they don't know this?
Because they're relying on others. They've become so dependent on the news media that somebody's going to report this. But what we've seen in the last 20 years is the news media seems to have an agenda. And we're not necessarily hearing, it's one of the reasons why I brought up the whole Krakatoa thing. It's an absurd example. But Krakatoa disappeared, and most people don't know that happened because the news just didn't bring it up. It didn't make the news feed that week. So most people don't know that, one of the biggest volcanoes in the South Pacific is gone. And that's availability heuristic bias. And the agencies count on this, man.
When did that happen with Krakatoa?
In the last 10 years, the last 5 years, 2017, 19, something like that. It just blows. It doesn't make the news. Nobody even knows that happened. So what you're seeing here, look at that England slide. This is slide number 2 or 3.
Yeah, this is 3,000. It's up to 6,000. Deaths?
Do you see any prior season? Yeah, specimens. Each specimen is an infection, right? It means you came in, you got tested. Do you see any prior year that comes close to it? Right. So once again,
going back to 2010.
How am I the guy pointing this out? This shouldn't be the case. I'm not supposed to be the guy doing this. You're supposed to be hearing this from Marion Koopmans, Helen Branswell, the people at Stat News. That's who you're supposed to hear this from. But Helen Branswell blocks me on Twitter. Why would you do that, Helen? I'm the one telling everybody that there's an outbreak in England and it's worse than any we've seen in recent history. I mean, at least since what? Since they had refrigeration, right? What do you say, 2010? Right? That's when they brought refrigeration to England, I believe. So since then,
Not the
this
beer.
is the not yet. I'm hoping we get there next year, but this is the worst outbreak in England's history. There's nothing that compares to this. Okay, so this is not a theory. This is not a hypothesis. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is, I'm right, and all of you guys in the audience in the white lab coats didn't know it. That makes you wrong. You didn't know this is the worst influenza outbreak in the history of England. And you're learning it from me. That's like an atrocity. That this is ridiculous. This is absurd. I'm not qualified to be telling you guys this. Do you understand what I'm saying, Jason? I mean, this is.
Do you remember
how
that sketch?
Am I the one
Do you remember
determining
that sketch?
This is the worst outbreak in England's history, and you're hearing it from the guy in the hat and the glasses?
Do you remember that Saturday Night Live sketch where Chris Farley shows up and he's like, I'm not qualified. I don't look the part. I don't smell good. And he's like going through all these negative attributes of himself.
He was classic, man. He was funny. What a talented guy he was, man. He is missed. So let's forge ahead because we got a lot to cover, man. This is all just public service announcement crap, right? I mean, we're not even getting into the meat. Let's go back to the slides here. Chris Farley. And since we're talking about guys that passed away, Danny DeVito passed away this week. Another big loss, I think.
Oh,
you know?
Wait, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Danny DeVito passed away this week. I could be wrong. It might be a dream I had. Is it true?
Well, I
I thought
mean,
I read Danny
news.
DeVito died. Maybe it was a rumor. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No. Richard Lewis.
Richard Lewis died.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
All right,
Danny
all right,
DeVito's
all right,
still alive.
Danny DeVito.
He scared me there.
Good to hear. Sorry, Danny, if you're watching the show.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to freak you out. Bro.
That was disinformation.
I'm sorry. I don't know where I heard it, but yeah,
Yeah.
Richard Lewis passed away. Richard Lewis passed away.
That is a
He was
common
on
mistake.
He was on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and so I guess he got to work with Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s wife, Cheryl Haynes. Cheryl.
Huh.
So Richard Lewis was on Curb Your Enthusiasm with Cheryl.
Correct.
With Bobby's wife, right? So he and Bobby's wife must have got to know each other pretty well. They were on the show together for years. All right, so let's forge ahead here. So what do we got? We went from England, and now we're looking at the Netherlands. So the Netherlands is also having what appears to be the worst outbreak they've had in half a dozen years.
1,500.
Okay, now you go now. So what I have, so when I see that, the next thing I do is I zoom out. All right, so I take my lens and I zoom out and I go to the next slide. And the next slide is also Netherlands, but now we're looking back to 2009.
It's just getting worse and worse.
Meaning the current outbreak is the worst outbreak they've seen in Netherlands since 2010, 15 years. All right, so the likelihood that there's an outbreak prior to that that's significantly worse than what they're having right now is pretty low. Right, maybe 1977 or something like that. But the point is, what they're experiencing right now in England, right now in Netherlands, is about as bad as it has ever been in history. And they're learning it from me. And again, I'm the first to tell you, I think that's kind of absurd. All right, let's forge ahead. Last week's show on my channel, we got cut off, right? I mean, 2 seconds into the show, the first slide I showed, I showed the thumbnail, and they considered the thumbnail.
Just not even talk about it, because the last time we went down this road, it brought up more stuff. Just whatever.
All right. So the net of this is what we've been talking about is another pandemic, something other than COVID, different from COVID, and it's what Kaylee's holding up. We love Kaylee. Kaylee is awesome, right? Kaylee brings the evidence to the room, holds it up, and thinks nobody's going to notice that it doesn't say COVID. God bless her. God bless this woman. Nothing in her hands says COVID. Now, the document on the right, I've got that on the next slide. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that document. I've got the cover page. There you go. So that's what she has in that hand, right, is Crimson Contagion. And ASPR is Bob Cadlick. Bob Cadlick is the guy that Rand Paul says, I don't know who Bob Cadlick is, and I didn't even know who he was for like a year and a half. I never even heard of this guy. Really? He's the guy running the whole thing here, bro. And you never even heard of him? That's kind of like bragging. I didn't even know Kamala Harris was the vice president. Are you kidding me? That's not a flex, bro. Telling people you didn't know who he was, that's not really a flex, Rand.
Maybe Rand Paul is more of a Buick guy.
It's not the flex you think it is. Bob Cadlick's running the thing, and Rand is like, I didn't even know who this guy was for a year and a half.
That was on the book tour, right?
Yeah. And he says he runs the safety committee. Okay. Well, Crimson Contagion was this big exercise, and now we have the new Crimson Contagion collection at the John Cullen store. Well, it's the John Cullen store. So you go to teespring.com / I am John Cullen.
We got people sponsoring the show.
People love this. Are you kidding? People are wearing this and loving it. I've got people wearing this stuff in Georgetown, and all the spooks are seeing it, and it's freaking them out. You're not supposed to know about Crimson Contagion, and we got hoodies. We got Crimson Contagion hoodies. We got long sleeve T-shirts. You wear this anywhere around the office at AT&T or Verizon, and people are going to lose their mind. Now, the Biohazard watch cap has been a huge seller. I think we did something like 40,000. Oh, my God, 40,000 units last week. It's really tough to keep these in.
Back to this.
All right. So this is Kaylee. This is Kaylee McEnany, and she is clutching these documents in her new job. What's fascinating is Kaylee McEnany didn't get the job until April 2020. Kaylee McEnany is announced as the new press secretary. I think it's April 6th or April 7th or something like this. So she's in the new role April 8th of 2020. So what's she doing walking around with Crimson Contagion documents from 2019? The exercise ended in August. What the hell is she walking around with them for? Where's all the COVID stuff? Where's all the SARS-CoV-2? Wait, she's got notes? She's got handwritten notes? Well, where does it say COVID? It's got to say COVID in that upper right-hand corner. It says SARS. No, it doesn't, does it? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Wait, what do you mean? Why doesn't it say SARS-CoV-2, Jason? It's got to have some COVID. No. I told the guys at YouTube we're not going to talk about COVID.
No, she strikes me as the kind of girl that everybody wanted to sit next to on test day in school.
I have a feeling you're right. Yeah. And she ends up marrying. She married the guy who's 6'8" and 275 pounds. The guy is huge. Her husband's like a tight end. Yeah, he's like the Kelsey, Jason Kelsey, Travis Kelsey. He's huge. Her husband's
I'm pretty sure that guy's
6'5",
gay.
Which one? Travis Kelsey?
Isn't he? Wasn't he caught in Vegas, like ditching what's her name and hanging out with his bros?
I don't know.
Bro business to deal with.
Dude, they're football players. That's what they do. All right. So the point here is Kaylee McEnany is walking around with these documents about Crimson Contagion, and Crimson Contagion is avian influenza, and it's an avian influenza outbreak in China. Yet, when we look at NPR says we just had the deadliest avian influenza outbreak in American history. Well, wait, but I thought we were talking about China. So this is different from COVID. Right? You see, those are chickens, right? Those are not bats, right? You can tell, right? Everybody sees that. Those are not bats. And we don't eat bat soup.
You could.
Bats aren't food. Who the hell eats
The
bats?
Chinese girl was having it. She looks
the
pretty
Chinese
grossed out.
aren't eating bats. You know what kind of...
Is that...
Dude, there's so few Chinese...
Yeah.
You've been to Hong Kong.
No,
You've
I've
been
seen
to Shanghai.
shark soup. I've never seen bat soup.
Shark fin soup is a thing there, and they're weird for
like
that.
snot.
But nobody's really eating bats. I mean, there might be some old Chinese guy who's 87 years old who pines for the day
Why
when
would
his
that
daddy
guy
used to
eat
kill a
it?
bat. Because his daddy used to kill bats for him when he was 6, and so he misses eating the bats. Most people in China are not eating bats.
Yeah, but this is like a
Guaranteed.
Mr. Beast Instagram shoot or something. Like, who did this?
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
You go to Shanghai, you can't find bat soup. There's my challenge. Go to Shanghai and try and find bat soup in Shanghai. Everybody's going to look at you like, what the hell? Dude,
Here.
This isn't, we don't
Here's
have bat
shark
soup.
soup.
Shark fin.
Imitation.
Yeah, well, that's,
shark. Oh. Whoa.
no,
Whoa.
yeah, it's a disaster. That's a mess.
Ooh.
That is a mess.
That's a
Between
lot
them
of
with the shark
sharks.
fins, yeah, and then the Japanese with the dolphins. It's a mess. All right, I can't solve all the problems in one night though. So let's get back. Let's get back to the Crimson Contagion fun with chickens. So Kaylee's walking around with all the chicken stuff, and I'm wondering what's the matter with you? Why aren't you focused on COVID? Well, the chicken story, the story of the chicken virus, this avian influenza, goes back to 2013 in China. Wait a second. China. 2013 in China. By the time Trump is sworn in 2017, this is already a mess. The Department of Defense is engaged already. It's a virus, dude. It's a chicken virus. And the Pentagon? Can you imagine that phone call? Would you like to be the guy calling the Pentagon and saying, "Hey guys, listen, I know that you're like military and tanks and bombs and shit, but we've got a chicken virus. We were hoping you might be able to help out in some way, sandbag, something."
I thought you said
Imagine
it was
me
a
on the
China
other end of this
virus.
phone call. China, the China virus, okay?
Yeah.
How often did you hear Donald Trump use the term COVID?
China.
It was the China virus.
Yeah.
He didn't call it COVID. No. He was not I want the audience to think about this for a minute. Really take a pause. How often did you hear Donald Trump say SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19? He said the China virus. Then he started calling it Kung Flu when he wanted.
Did he really call it that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he would do
He's
that.
He's like a 14-year-old.
And he's ribbing Fauci the whole time because he knows what happened. They had to bring this story to him his first week in the White House. His first week. He's sworn in. Yes, he puts his hand on the Bible. Melania is standing there. Okay, they get him to the White House. They size him up for all his new clothes and all that stuff. And they're bringing him the briefing. And they're telling him all the chickens in China. They're killing chickens. This is really a mess. Do they tell him that the really virulent strain might be ours? I don't think they brought that up in the first meeting.
You know what I wanted to tell you? I forgot to find the link, but somebody sent me something about Trump made some comments again praising the vaccine, and people are getting pissed off. So, I mean, again, maybe he's like, hey, it's the China chicken virus, not what you think.
Right. And it again,
it's
hard to prove.
Hang on a second.
What?
Actually,
what?
We shouldn't really even be, you're right, because they're going to get pissed off that we're talking about this, but also we're out of time. So people are going to be able to join us. We'll discuss all of this stuff on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and of course, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We'll be back in 5 minutes, so stay with us. We got a lot of questions in the chat, but you know what? Let's talk about this on the sponsor exclusive.